Welcome in, everybody, to our deep dive today, all about the zeitgeist. It's a big one. You've sent in some really fascinating excerpts. A lot of them are about how different generations experience the world, but then also some interesting ideas about what connects us all, those common threads. And that's what we're going to uncover today, how these generational shifts impact everything from how we work to even how we love. And, one thing that's super interesting is this idea from one of the sources that just by adapting to your generation's tools, you could actually end up getting ahead.
Hmm. It's such a fascinating idea. I mean, the tools we have, they really do shape our whole perspective.
Oh, totally. And even our opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
I think about like one source had this really funny image. It was like somebody trying to use a rotary phone and then like looking over at somebody with AirPods, and just being completely baffled.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it really highlights how tech can just like create these divides. But, what the source is really saying is that it's not about like avocado toast preferences
Mm.
or whatever the stereotype is. It's about adapting to the resources you have and the challenges of the time,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and it makes me think about how older generations, they might have needed like more physical strength
Uh-huh.
and resilience,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, they were literally building things
Mm-hmm.
with their hands.
Yeah.
And now it's like younger generations, we may not be building houses from scratch
Right.
as often, but we need that mental resilience instead
Mm.
to handle the constant information overload.
And the tech that's always changing.
Yeah, it's so fast-paced.
It's true. I mean, we are just bombarded by news and social media all the time. What does that even do to our attention spans, right?
Right.
I mean, the source makes this point that like older generations, they'll criticize younger generations for not being quote unquote hardworking, but maybe we're working hard in different ways.
That's a good point.
So then, like, what does that mental strength actually look like? Are we talking about critical thinking skills, the ability to, like, filter information?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, critical thinking, it's crucial now
Yeah.
because there's just so much information
It's overwhelming.
and so much of it's like not even true
Yeah.
or it's biased.
Right.
So you have to be able to think for yourself,
Yeah.
see things from different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and then, yeah, information filter. That's huge. We're just like inundated with data constantly.
It never stops.
So you got to know how to prioritize,
Yeah.
categorize,
Yeah.
and really just like extract meaning out of
Yeah.
all that data.
So that's a skill in and of itself.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget emotional resilience, too.
Oh, that's a big one.
This digital age,
Yeah.
it can be so stressful, so demanding.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, I get overwhelmed sometimes by it all. And, that actually connects back to like this next big idea from the sources about the power of tools.
Hmm.
Say every generation has tools. It's just, are you using them wisely?
Right.
And they even had like this really cool visual of like a person looking in a mirror and they see all these different versions of themselves.
Oh, wow.
Like a medieval version, a futuristic version, and, like a modern version.
Interesting.
And the idea is like, we all have the potential to adapt and thrive in different eras if given the chance.
I love that. I love that image.
Yeah.
It's so true. We are adaptable. Humans are.
Right.
But it's not always that simple, is it? Like the source does acknowledge it's not just like adapt and you'll succeed.
Mhm.
You can't just ignore like all the other things going on, systemic factors, how you were raised,
Yeah.
what kind of education you had, even like where you live.
Your access to resources. Yeah.
All of that influences like your opportunities to even learn about the tools, let alone use them.
So we all might have that potential to adapt,
Right.
but there's definitely roadblocks for certain people. And that makes me wonder, let's say we remove those roadblocks. Would everyone even want to adapt? Is there something about each generation, I don't know, that makes them resistant to change?
That's a good question. I mean, it is human nature to resist change, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
Like we get comfortable with what we know. And then learning new stuff, it can be scary.
Intimidating.
Yeah. But I think there's also this generational element to it. Like each generation, they develop their own values
Uh-huh.
and norms based on like the world they grew up in.
Right. Their context.
And sometimes those values clash.
Makes total sense. Think about how much technology has changed just in the last 10 years.
It's crazy.
Like what feels intuitive to somebody who grew up with a smartphone in their hand
Yeah.
might feel totally alien to somebody who didn't.
Right.
So how much of this generational clash is just like discomfort with the unfamiliar?
I think a huge part of it, and it goes both ways too. Like younger generations, they might struggle to understand, like, what it was like for their grandparents.
To grow up without the internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as older generations, they might be like, whoa, with the pace of everything
Yeah.
and how complex the digital world is.
That's a great point. It's almost like we're speaking different languages sometimes.
Yeah, it's true.
Even though we're all part of the same, like, human family.
Exactly. And that's why, like, communication is so key. And empathy.
Oh, for sure.
We got to listen to each other, try to understand, where the other person's coming from, and just recognize we're all on this journey together.
We were.
Even if our paths look different.
I love that. It's like finding that common ground,
Yeah.
that shared humanity amidst all the differences.
Exactly.
And, speaking of shared experiences, this source brings up the question of legacy. They ask, what will our generation be remembered for?
Oh, interesting.
And their answer is, I think, pretty realistic. They're like, a lot of it's out of our control.
That's true.
Like, pop culture trends might define an era, even if we personally don't, like, engage with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, picture this. Okay. Aliens stumble upon Earth centuries from now.
Okay.
What if all they find are our memes and TikToks?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, what would they think?
That's hilarious.
What story would they tell about us?
I mean, it really shows you future generations might interpret our culture
Yeah.
in ways we don't even expect.
Totally. But on a more serious note, the source points out that even when it feels like we're just caught up in the everyday chaos, our little actions can have a ripple effect.
I like that.
It's that butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Small choices can actually lead to big changes. So even if we don't become, like, globally famous, our actions still matter.
They do.
So it's about making the most of what's around us and trusting that those good things will spread.
Love that.
So then the question for you, the listener, is what kind of impact do you want to leave on your community or the world?
Big questions.
I know. Worth thinking about, though, right?
Definitely.
But now let's switch gears. Let's talk about something that connects us all, across generations. Love. This source, they really believe in love's enduring power, even in a world that's so transformed by technology.
Makes sense.
And they even get pretty personal. They reflect on, like, how dating apps and social media are changing the way love even develops.
Oh, interesting.
They even have this thought-provoking image, like a heart,
Okay.
surrounded by all these symbols of love, like roses, emojis. Okay. And they wonder if relying on technology to connect might actually be stopping us from experiencing, like, a more natural, organic love.
That's fascinating.
And here's the really interesting part. They admit that they've never actually truly fallen in love.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a big thing to share.
it is. And it makes you wonder, could their lack of experience with romantic love actually give them, like, a clearer view of it?
Maybe they're less influenced by all those, like,
Wow.
romanticized ideas of love
Yeah.
that we get from movies and songs. It's like they're coming at it from this more, like, analytical, almost philosophical angle.
That's interesting. It makes me think about, like, how technology has impacted love throughout history.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't new, right?
It's not. Every generation has dealt with, like, how tech shapes our relationships.
Totally. From, like, love letters to telegrams to texting. The tools might change,
Yeah.
but that need for connection,
Oh, it's always there.
it's human, right?
Yeah.
But what's different now is just the sheer speed and volume of those connections.
That's just true.
We can connect with so many people so fast, which, I mean, can be amazing,
Right.
but also really overwhelming.
Definitely.
It makes you wonder, how has technology both enhanced and complicated love throughout history? And in the case of the source, how has their own experience, or their lack of experience, colored their perspective on love? We'll dig into that more, but first, a quick message.
It really is fascinating to think about, this source's perspective on love. It's so unique, shaped by their own experiences. And it just adds, like, a whole other layer to our conversation.
It does. Their honesty is refreshing, too, To admit they've never felt that, like, intense, all-consuming love makes you wonder, has that actually given them a clearer understanding?
Maybe. Maybe they're less caught up in those romanticized ideas we see everywhere. In movies, songs.
Right. It's almost like they have, like, this outsider's view,
Yeah.
which could be super valuable.
Yeah, I mean, their perspective might challenge those expectations we have. Make us really think about, like, how much technology shapes our ideas about love.
Mhm.
And that critical thinking is so important, especially in a world where we're constantly told what love should be.
100%. We need to develop our own internal compass for love instead of just following trends or algorithms. And this source is a great example of that. Being open about their experience reminds us there's no one right way to approach love.
Exactly. And, this whole deep dive, it's not just about generational differences. It's
Yeah.
about exploring those like universal human experiences, the
Yeah.
things that connect us all, no matter when we were born.
So true.
Love, loss, ambition, that search for meaning. These are themes that like resonate across time and cultures.
They do.
And yeah, we might experience them differently,
Right.
but the core emotions, those are shared.
And recognizing that is huge, right?
It is.
It's key to bridging those gaps between generations. It's acknowledging that we're all on this journey together,
We are.
even if our paths look different, and even our pace.
I love that. Like we're all threads in this giant human tapestry. Each thread's unique, but woven together with so many others.
left.
And the more we can appreciate like the beauty of that tapestry, the complexity, the more connected we become,
Mm-hmm.
and the more empathy we have.
Beautifully said. And that's actually the perfect transition to our final thoughts on this deep dive. Let's bring it all together. We talked about generational misunderstandings, the power of tools, legacies, the nature of love. What stands out to you as, like, the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that focus on adaptation. It's a key to thriving, right? In a world that's constantly changing. It's about being open to change
Mm-hmm.
and using the tools of our generation wisely.
I totally agree. And it's not just adapting to, like, external stuff, right?
Right.
It's adapting our mindsets, our
Mhm.
perspectives.
Oh, that's crucial. Being open to new ideas,
Mm.
challenging our own assumptions, and just recognizing that there are many ways to see the world. That's all part of adaptation.
It is. It's about, like, intellectual flexibility, curiosity, so we can learn and grow throughout our lives.
Right. And then use that growth to connect with other people
Exactly.
from all walks of life.
Even if they're from different generations or
Or-
have different views.
Yeah. It's those connections that really make life richer.
They do. They make the whole journey meaningful. So, as we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with a final thought. Inspired by one of the sources, they said, "In this ever-evolving world, what will you grab hold of and make the most of? What tools will you master? What impact will you try to make? And how will you define love in your own time?"
Those are great questions to think about. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all, but even focusing on our like local impact, that can make a real difference.
Yeah, we might not be able to, like, single-handedly fix global problems, but we can impact our communities, our
Mhm.
relationships, even our own lives.
Absolutely. And it's about finding those points where our actions, even little ones, can ripple out
Yeah.
and create change.
Exactly. Like, it's the butterfly effect. Our choices matter, even the small ones. And it's empowering to know that. We have agency.
We do. And it takes the pressure off, too.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
We can just focus on what we're passionate about
Yeah.
and do what we can. Finding that balance between, like, striving for change and accepting what we can't change, that's timeless wisdom. It goes
Yeah.
beyond generations. We're all navigating this complex world.
We are. And figuring it out as we go.
That's right.
There's no instruction manual, no matter what generation you're from.
Nope.
But that's also what makes it so exciting.
It is. The unknown is where the magic happens. It's where we find new things, challenge ourselves, and create meaning out of all the, like, chaos.
It's a good reminder to embrace that uncertainty, be curious, and never stop learning or exploring. And to remember, we're all in this together. We're sharing this journey.
I love that. So well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It is. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the generational zeitgeist.
We did.
And remember, keep those questions in mind. How are you using the tools of your generation? What kind of impact are you making on the world around you? And how do you define love in your own time?
Such good questions.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those conversations going.